Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, and welcome back to the channel, and today we have the Alpha 2 weekend notes for Smite 2. The Alpha weekend will be starting tomorrow, Thursday, May 30th, as it says here. This is Wednesday as I'm recording this, but we got the patch notes for all of the changes that are going to be going down in the Alpha. And from what I've seen, a lot is going to be changing. They're taking a lot of community feedback on board, which is really good to see. A lot of things, like they're changing stuff for the sake of change to see what works, but they're also changing some important things that like the community have given them feedback on. And so yeah, I'll go over everything in detail, explain it all for you in this video. So let's just jump right in. So first up, they've done a lot of stuff to the item store because this was one of the biggest complaints that people had with the Smite 2 Alpha. A lot of the item store was very difficult to navigate on console. It just didn't look great. So they've artistically reworked it. They've made it a little bit more dark now. It's almost like dark mode item store. I think it looks pretty good. Definitely better than the previous one, but I think there are still definitely some improvements that could be made with it. I'll try and find some screenshots from the like dev live stream and put them up on the video if I can remember of what it looks like, because I don't think they show it in here. But it's definitely an improvement, but I think there are still changes that could be made to make it look better. I think the colors are a little bit flat at the moment, but I think the overall like layout and design of it is quite good. They've also added 3 different designs as well. So there's the left aligned, which is how we had it in the Alpha 1, where it's on the left side of your screen, takes up about a third of your screen, maybe a quarter of your screen on the left. Personally, I wasn't a big fan of that, but they've now added a centered store, which is very similar to Smite 1 store, how it just comes up in the middle of your screen, fills up quite a lot of it. You get more detailed like item descriptions and stat descriptions in the centered store because it takes up more of your screen. It's probably the one I'm going to use. I think it looks really good. And then they also have the split item store, which is left and right. Right shows the details of the item tree and the stats of the item, and the left shows like the overall store navigation. I believe this is how it is on console, so if you're a console player, you probably want to play on split if you want something familiar. And this will be in the settings tab if you want to go there. They've added role filters and popular tab per god. This is really cool. So at the top of the store now, you can click on like jungle, mid, ADC, support, and solo, and it'll bring up like a general list of items that are probably useful in that role. Will they be optimal? Absolutely not. Will they even be good? Some of them probably won't be, but I think it's still handy to have there for people that don't really know what they're doing in the Alpha. You know, everything's changing so quickly. It's a new game. The item system is entirely different. I don't have a full handle on it yet, so I imagine a lot of like casual players don't either, so this is really helpful. You can now search for specific terms, so like crit, int, intelligence, and stuff like that. So if you just want to search the store for all the crit items, you just search crit, you find all that. Auto buy will no longer be cancelled by buying or selling potions. I'd never used auto buy, but that's definitely a nice feature for people that use auto buy. Moving on from the store though, they have added the default ruler targeting setting for like your targeter that you have in game that comes out in front of you. That's very cool, and the reticle can now be set to none as well, which is definitely useful. Some controller stuff, they have adjusted the default sensitivity and sensitivity scale for both PC and console. The sensitivity scale was like kind of whack, honestly, in the Smite 1 Alpha. There was like almost no change in like the amount that your sensitivity would actually move, so that's good to see. They've also adjusted the controller savage layout to be more like Smite 1. I don't play on controller. I assume this is probably useful for you guys. Damage numbers, again, I will try and find a clip from the live stream to put on screen right now if I can remember. Hopefully I do, about how the damage numbers look. They definitely look a lot better. Basically, the long and short of this is they have removed the damage type from damage that you are dealing. So if you're dealing magical damage or you're dealing physical damage, it's no longer going to appear with the icon next to it, which just helps a little bit with clutter. Like, you probably already know what damage you're dealing anyway, but if you're receiving damage, it's still going to have those icons so you can know what you want to counter build and stuff like that intuitively. They have also done a lot of sizing and scaling things. Generally, I think they mentioned on the live stream that smaller amounts of damage will be smaller numbers popping off of you, and then larger amounts of damage in one burst will be popping up off of you in larger amounts, so you can sort of see like intuitively what is damaging you for like big amounts. They've adjusted like the position of damage numbers and other like random stuff. The damage numbers basically have had a pass. They look better in my opinion from what I saw on the live stream, but we'll have to see when we actually get in game on the Alpha. Some accolade changes. Accolades won't be on your screen for quite as long, which is really cool, and they can now display kill information and accolade information simultaneously. They've added basic attack descriptions to all gods, fixed a variety of typos in god descriptions, and future updates are coming to organization and color coding of god description text, but it's still in progress. Yeah, they do look a little bit weird at the moment, so hopefully that gets improved upon. Moving on to Conquest though. First up, some map changes. Actually, let's read out what they have to say about Conquest. Our primary goal for change on the Conquest map is to address the pacing. Definitely, games are going far too long in the Alpha. Some of that will be because people have no idea what they're doing. One, there was a lot of completely new players, honestly, from what I saw in the Alpha. Like, people who had no idea what lane to even go to. But also, people just generally are experimenting with things. There'll probably be less surrenders. There'll be less people just like rushing down to end the game because they're not trying to gain MMR or anything think they're just trying to experiment with stuff. So that some of it will be due to that, the fact that we were having very long games, but the pacing did feel very slow. Alpha 1 felt like matches ran too long, objectives were too hard to secure. Yeah, another big one. Objectives were way too tanky and did way too much damage. It was very hard to actually take an objective, even if you were fed. And gold leads were less common or impactful in the early to mid game. Gold leads for the team, I would say yes, but gold leads for single players, you could get very far ahead in the Smite 2 Alpha compared to Smite 1. Mostly off of the back of tower bounties. Like if you were winning your lane and you get all 3 tower bounties and destroy the tower and you've been securing all the farm and like war horns and stuff, you would end up with a massive lead. So you could get big like single god leads, but yeah, in general, team-wide gold leads weren't so big. For the next Alpha, objectives are going to become easier to kill. Good stuff. That will move games towards ending more quickly as teams can take them more often and gain bigger advantages over their enemies. Gold sources in the lane and jungle will be increasing as well to make map control even more valuable. There are also some important fixes and changes to the amount of XP earned from kills. These economic factors are likely to have an impact on the mode on a variety of ways. So yeah, not really anything too specific here. We'll just have to feel it out in the Alpha 2 on like how these changes are going to impact everything. So for the map, they have improved camera collision on the outside bounds of the map. Previously, the camera was blocked by the invisible wall, but now should only be blocked by environment assets, so just a little bit of nice camera changes there. Fixed fountain deaths, granting XP and gold to the player who died in the fountain. Dude, that's funny. Changed the name of the blight buff to caustic. Okay, so that's just for, I believe, is it purple buff that's blight, or is it red? I think it's red, actually. Probably because, spoiler alert, we'll see further down, Hades is coming in the Smite 2 Alpha weekend too, so they probably didn't want to confuse blight with Hades blight, obviously, so they changed it to caustic. FG massively reduced base health, reduced the pre-fire on his magma slam, and fixed damage scaling on Fire Giant's other 2 abilities. They were previously doing low damage without factoring in his base power into the equation. Fire Giant door, they have fixed the door, giving golden XP to players who died to the door, so similar to the Fountain one. Fixed Fenrir dying when he brutalizes through the door, and fixed Fenrir killing players by picking them up and placing them in the door. Gold Fury reduced base health as well. Ancient Fury, same thing. Fixed the Ancient Fury tooltip. Showed 3 minutes on the Ancient Fury. Disabling towers effect is actually only 2 minutes. A bunch of random like minion changes and stuff. I'm not going to bother reading those out. There will not be, well, they will be impactful, but it's not worth reading. Like, you're not going to be able to know the impact of that. You'll just feel it when we get into the Alpha. Towers, the tier 1, they have decreased the team gold reward from 125 to 100. The team gold reward for tier 2s, 150 to 125, and then tower bounties, they have decreased the base gold for the first one from 75 to 50, and the final one from 125 to 100. Definitely good to see. Tower bounties were absolutely enormous. I mentioned this earlier in Smite 2 Alpha. Like, if you took your tower first, you had like a solid half item on someone. It was like kind of insane. Fixed backdoor protection VFX, new temporary tower dissolve FX, fixed tower bounties sometimes flying into the walls. Good that they fixed that. That was really annoying. Fixed blue bounty not properly being removed from the tower health bar when the opposing team has claimed theirs. Yeah, this was also very annoying, so good fixes there. Kill rewards. Reduce the penalty applied to the XP reward for killing a lower level god from 20 to 10, so you're going to get more XP for killing lower level players. Not more than you would for a high level player, obviously, but you're going to get less punished for farming low level players. Reduce the bonus applied to the XP reward for killing higher level gods from 40 to 25, so definitely some big shifts there. This is mainly just to help games end a little bit quicker, allow people to build leads a little bit more substantially, rather than just like when you kill someone that's O3, you get fucking nothing, and then they kill you once back and they get like an entire item. Like, this is just fixing that kind of stuff. Also, apologies if my voice sounds a little bit weird and like I'm pausing and stuff in this. I'm a little bit sick right now, but we're still getting you these patch notes, boys. We're still grinding. So moving on to gods, we have Hades is coming in the Smite 2 Alpha. There's a few changes going on with Hades. I won't read over everything that they've done here. I'll just read over the changes and explain them because I have a pretty decent handle on what they're doing with them. So still has blight and everything. Your attacks and abilities apply blight, and they have reduced strength and intelligence while suffering from blight, and receive additional effects from your abilities. Death from below, I don't believe has changed. Yeah, applies or refreshes blight, does int scaling, no scaling on the slow in terms of like building any int or strength or anything like that, so just standard there. Shroud of Darkness, pretty standard as well, no like int scaling on any of the like silence or fear durations, all pretty normal there. Devour Souls, not really too much changed here either. Damage scales with intelligence. Hades is still going to be a very heavy intelligence user, kind of similar to how he was in Smite 1. Well, I guess the same as he was in Smite 1. It is a different system, but yeah, he's going to be building in like you would build magical power in Smite 1. But the big change here is to his ultimate. So basically, now Hades can use any one of his regular 3 abilities, only one though, during the course of his ultimate. And it works probably how you would think it works. If you use your dash during your ultimate, you reposition yourself and the ultimate continues on after the fact. If you use your 2, it's going to silence enemies. I'm not sure if it's a cone or if it silences in like an AoE around him. It'd be cool if it did a full AoE around him, but it might still just be a cone depending on which way you're facing. And then the 3 just does the 3, detonates people, so and they'll obviously have blight on them if they're in your ultimate and stuff like that. So I think this is really cool. Biggest application here for Hades is that you can now chase people after he like drops his ult. So if you drop your ult and they dash out of your ult, you can now follow them with your dash and then keep them in that. So that's going to be real big for Hades and like late game team fights having an actual impact. So yeah, pretty cool changes to Hades. We are also getting Sol in the Smite 2 alpha as well, who has got a few changes going on. Obviously, she was a magical ADC in Smite 1, but in Smite 2, there aren't really necessarily magical ADCs in the same sense. But in the broader sense, she is still going to be a very intelligence-based character, and she is still going to be working around attack speed and stuff. Her kit is going to be mostly the same. So the main change to her passive is just that you now get strength and intelligence. Obviously, you would only get magical power in Smite 1. You now get both of those, which is very handy for her. She is going to want a bit of strength there. Obviously, strength is better for scaling your auto attacks, so you get 100% of your strength versus 20% of your intelligence, so definitely going to be useful to get a little bit of strength off of her passive there for making her autos hit harder. The one is pretty much unchanged, other than the fact that the more heat you have at the time you use the pull, the larger its area will be. So whether this will be like super relevant, I don't know, because generally you're using the one to like build your heat back up if it's drained a little bit. But you know, if you're already at maximum heat and you're in a fight and you just want to drop the one for like some extra damage or to stop your heat decaying, it might be like a much larger area. It does go up to 2.5 times the Smite 1 radius at 100 heat, so that is actually pretty substantial. The 2 is basically unchanged, does int damage scaling and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, it can still only trigger ability-based items and effects, so they haven't brought back Polynomicon triggering on this. I think it would have been cool to do that. Maybe it would be just as unbalanced as it was in Smite 1 and couldn't be done, but I feel like it would be quite cool. Like, they are trying some absolutely crazy things in Smite 2, and I think it would have been cool to allow Sol to proc basic attack item effects on this again. You know, maybe you have like a Hydra's and a Polynomicon style build and just go absolutely ham with that. I think it could have been cool, but that's not unfortunately how it's going to be. The 3 is pretty much unchanged, other than it has an extra burst of damage at the end. So after 3 seconds, you detonate the trail, dealing additional magical damage as you become immune, so you're just going to get a little bit extra there. In fact, quite a lot extra. The explode damage is pretty huge, so if you can keep someone in that trail for the 3 seconds and then detonate it on them, you're going to get a lot of damage. As with the 2, though, another returning component is not going to be there from Sol's original release. This ability is not going to stun on the destination, unfortunately. Maybe fortunately, that was a little bit ridiculous, honestly. But yeah, it's not going to stun. It's just going to have a little bit of extra explode damage. And finally, the ult is basically the same. Still scaling with intelligence. Nothing really changed there, honestly. Moving on to some general changes. So, they say in the first alpha, we saw a pretty clear pretty clear trend towards bruiser tank strategies being overpowered. Gods in Smite 2 get a lot of natural strength, which tanks use effectively and deal a lot of basic attack damage throughout their longer lifespans. For Alpha 2, we have readjusted the base strength of all gods, reducing it game-wide. Many gods also receive base damage changes to adjust for this, so the most clear effect will be basic attack damage. This should curb the damage output of gods who are foregoing any strength and put more of an emphasis on specific build choices. So yeah, I don't really know where this came from, this idea of like everyone should have base strength. I guess it's just to make like autos kind of hit fairly hard no matter what you're doing. But like you could just do basic attack damage. I don't feel like you really need to do this. And if you are going to give gods base strength, give them a little bit of base int as well. I don't know, it feels kind of weird. But yeah, they have base strength has been nerfed across the board for all gods in differing amounts. Many god abilities with strength scaling have had their base damage adjusted in conjunction with the base strength changes, so probably a little bit of a bump up on the base damage of some strength-based abilities. And the following list of buffs and nerfs will list the unique buffs and nerfs applied on top of the base strength changes. So, and her, they have reduced the projectile range of Desert Fury from 16 to 12.8. I'm not sure where this was at in Smite 1. These numbers won't translate to Smite 1 because they used feet units instead of meters. But yeah, it does feel like Anher's ult has immense range in Smite 2, so it's fine to see that nerf down. Below her, they have nerfed the cooldown of Scourge by 1 second all ranks. Anubis, they have decreased the cooldown of Plague of Locusts from... Okay, it doesn't say what they've reduced it to. I think this is like a typo in the patch notes. But in theory, Plague of Locusts should be getting a reduced cooldown. Grasping Hands, they have also increased the damage per tick a little bit as well. Actually, only increased in the late game. For the early ranks, it's either like reduced or the same. Bacchus now gets 85% strength scaling on his belly flop instead of 65%. Kernanos is getting buffs. That's crazy, dude. Increase the initial hit damage scaling from 50% strength plus 80% int to 55 plus... Okay, so it just added 5% strength scaling to Bramble Blast, and also increase the slow on his ult when polymorphed from 10 to 15. Chak's abilities now actually cost 0 mana instead of just refunding the cost of the mana that you use, so you can actually use these abilities when you don't have the mana for them when you have your Chak passive. Loki's Vanish, they have increased the damage scaling per tick from 17.5% to 20% of strength, and the first hit of this ability now cripples targets. Okay, so they've added the cripple back to his ultimate from Smite 1. He didn't have that in Smite 2 for a little while. For Odin, they have decreased the charge time per pulse on his 3 from 0.93 seconds to 0.7, and this is going to better match Smite 1's pulse timing. It did feel a little bit weird in Smite 2. And then finally, Zeus is getting increased damage scaling 5% per tick on his ultimate for intelligence. So not any real major god changes, and I think I'm kind of fine with this because, like, we don't really know what's strong. There's going to be so many changes, so many new items, so many reworked items, changes to how Conquest works and stuff. You're not really going to get a feel for, like, what's completely broken. Although it is a little bit crazy to see Zeus buffed and no Fenrir nerfs, so, like, that is kind of insane, dude. Fenrir is absolutely ridiculous right now. The fact that he can bite you, like, instantly as soon as he presses his ult without having a little bit of a delay on it like he does in Smite 1. The fact that Brutalize can crit and a lot of gods on the current roster can't counter it. And in fact, they've even nerfed Blink. Spoilers, so it's not going to be no longer in combat Blink, so you can't even blink away from Fenrir's 3 anymore. Kind of crazy to not see any Fenrir nerfs, but yeah, Zeus gets a buff as well, which is insane. Moving on though to items. So they have this new system called stat efficiency, which essentially all of the tier 1 items that have a certain stat, they are like cost aligned with like the amount of stats that they can give. So like for example, this is numbers off the top of my head, it's probably not true. Like 5 strength costs 350 gold or whatever. Like that's generally, it's like each point of strength is going to cost you 70 gold. And then maybe for like cooldown reduction, it's each point of cooldown rate, it costs you like 300 gold or something like that. Again, not true, absolutely not true, but that's how they are generally looking at like stat efficiency, and they're trying to like balance all of the tier 1 items to be like stat efficient, the same cost. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. They explain it better on like the actual patch notes show, but yeah, they're essentially trying to make all of the like stats have a certain cost associated for 1 point of that stat. And so basically what they've done here is they have decreased the cost per point of attack speed from 70 to 60 and the cost per point of crit from 90 to 80. And they've also added a new stat efficiency for specifically int and cooldown on the same item. So items with int and CDR will have a decreased cost per point, and that is going from 75 to 55. So for all of your like mid lane mages, your Cuckoos, your Anubises, your Zeuses and stuff like that, you're going to be getting a lot cheaper access. They also explained a little bit on the patch notes and probably in this paragraph above that I didn't read about like why they're decreasing the attack speed and crit costs, because it does seem kind of crazy with how like good ADC builds were in the Smite 1 alpha. Basically, it's the base strength things. Like a lot of gods are losing a ton of base strength, and that obviously strength is 100% contributing to your basic attacks. So losing a lot of base strength is just going to nerf hunters across the board. So they're essentially buffing up their items a little bit by making them more cost efficient. General cost and economy changes. So they have decreased the Conquest starting gold by 50, decreased all 350 gold tier 3 items, tier 1 items to 300 gold instead. So now you're going to be looking at like 2 tier 1 items plus 3 potions is going to be like your general start, whereas before you would get 2 tier 1 items and only 2 potions. I think that's probably a good change. They've also increased the stat efficiency of tier 2 items from 1.1x to 1.2x, so this is that stat efficiency thing again. So I guess tier 1 items are probably 1x stat efficient, and then as you go up, obviously to incentivize you to build more like full items rather than just filling up your inventory with tier 1s at the start of the game. Like tier 2 items are now going to be 1.2x. I imagine tier 3 items are probably like 1.5x or something like that. Many tier 2 items have been made cheaper, and many tier 3 items have had their cost adjusted to better separate them into tiers and to create more intentional luxury items. So this was a big thing in the alpha. It felt like every single item in the alpha cost 2,700 gold. Like, that's not actually how it worked, but it felt like every item was in this like tight range of like 2,500 to 2,900 gold. Whereas like now some of them are going to be like 3k, 3,100, and some of them are going to be like 2,200, 2,300. So it's going to be a bit more like Smite 1, where you have some items that are intentionally cheaper. And that should definitely help out with like power curves and like crafting your build to ensure that you can get an item online at the right time. Next up though, it's some exciting stuff here, some very exciting stuff. This is my most favorite changes of the patch notes, the new items that they're going to be adding for Alpha 2. Some of them are absolutely insane, dude. I'm a really big fan of like where they're going with a lot of these items. So first up we have Pendulum Blade, which is 3,000 gold, 55 strength, 10 cooldown rate, and active, reduce your ability cooldowns by 3 seconds, and that's on an internal cooldown of 3 minutes. So basically it's temporal beads from Smite 1. You can just get that on an active item now, which I think is absolutely insane. I think this item is going to be core on any strength-based jungler, 100%. I don't see why you would not want this. Just having the access to just like reduce your cooldowns by 3 seconds whenever you want is going to like save you a lot, and it's also going to secure you a lot of kills that you wouldn't have got otherwise. This item is going to be absolutely core on strength junglers, and of course going to be insane on any ability based ADCs that they add. There currently aren't any really. I mean, there's Neith, but she doesn't really go too much strength. She goes more of like an in build. But if they add like Ula and he is more strength based, you're definitely going to want this on him as well. Absolutely crazy item. I would honestly consider buying this on some solo laners that can get away with going a bit more damage. Like Wukong probably wants this. There's going to be so much application for this item. I think it's going to be really fun to play with and really cozy. Moving on though, probably the craziest item, not only in this patch notes, but probably in the entirety of Smite 1's history and Smite 2's history. This item is completely insane. It's going to be busted. I am 100% sure of it, but it's going to be fun as fuck. So 2950 gold, 80 int, 10 cooldown rate. This is Staff of Muradin. Active, your next non-ultimate ability used will have no cooldown. Until the cooldown of 3 minutes. That is just ridiculous, and I love it. Like, I love the direction they're going with some of these items, where they're just, like, going unhinged and just seeing what works, because it is an alpha. Like, if this effect doesn't work and it's too unfun to play into, like, they can just remove this or nerf it in some way. But, like, even if this cooldown has to go to 5 minutes, I think it would be a really cool item to have in the game, because there's so much playmaking potential here. Like, obviously, it's going to be really good for your mid-lane mages. You know, they're very reliant on their abilities, being able to, like, for example, like, Scylla, you throw your 1, and then you pop this, you throw 2 2s on them instead, and then you just completely evaporate. I would buy this on Thor, dude, even though Thor's probably gonna have no int scaling. Maybe he'll have a little bit. He does have like some lightning damage in his kit that might be like thematically int based, but Thor is probably gonna be mostly strength based. But I would consider buying this item on Thor, even if the int doesn't really do that much for me, just because you can dunk down, double hammer, stun, and you get double tap, quadruple tap, and you're just gonna completely blow someone up doing that. Even without your ult, you know, you just stun, you pop this, you double tap someone, and they probably just die almost any stage of the game. Like, there's gonna be so much playmaking potential with this. Maybe even on like supports, like you could double crowd control someone if you have like a non-DRing CC, like a knock up or something. You could just knock up, and then as soon as they've landed, you knock them up again before they can even beads or anything. Like, this is gonna be completely busted, but I'm gonna have so much fun with this, dude. This is gonna be like one of my first things that I try out, I think, on like a bunch of different gods in the alpha weekend. This is like super cool. Next up, a much less exciting item. We have the Sphere of Negation, which is just a stat stick of int and magical prop. It's just basically filling a hole in the current roster of items. If you're a mage that wants protection against mages, maybe I should be using the term mage because there aren't classes in Smite 2, but if you're like an intelligence-based mid laner that is wants protection against an enemy intelligence-based mid laner, you buy this. Another exciting one though, not quite as exciting as the first two in my opinion, but Typhon's Fang is making a return in Alpha 2, and this is 2700 gold, 40% lifesteal, and 150 mana. So you get like no power on this, you get no protections on this, you get no health on this. You are purely buying this to be an absolute lifesteal machine. Anubis is obviously going to love this. Maybe even some hunters would like this. You know, it doesn't come with any specific int or strength, so any kind of hunter would potentially be able to build this. And also, any god in Smite 2, if you didn't know, can lifesteal with abilities regardless. You know, obviously in Smite 1, physical abilities don't lifesteal. But in Smite 2, that restriction is completely gone, so if you build this on Thor, you are going to be lifestealing as if you had Soul Eater, but at 40% value instead of like whatever, 10, 15%, whatever Soul Eater is. There's also no AoE coefficient multiplier in Smite 2 either, so if you didn't know, in Smite 1 there is a coefficient of 1/3 applied to any lifesteal that comes from AoE abilities, regardless of if they actually hit multiple targets or not. So if you're throwing out like a Scylla 2, you hit someone for 100 damage and you have 20% lifesteal, you would expect to heal for 20, but you'll actually heal for 1/3 of 20, so you'll heal for like 7-ish. That is completely gone in Smite 2, so 40% lifesteal is 40% lifesteal. If you hit 3 targets with your Anubis ult simultaneously, you're getting full 40% value on all 3 of those targets. So this is going to be really powerful. It doesn't look powerful. It looks ridiculously expensive for what it is, but it's a lot of lifesteal, and lifesteal is generally more powerful, at least in combat and in Smite 2. There is a system where you lifesteal less off minions. I think it's like either 1/3 or 1/4 value off of minions and objectives and stuff, so it's not going to be quite as good for sustaining, but like in team fights, you're going to get a lot of value off of this. And finally, for the new items, Breastplate is making its way into Smite 2. Nothing too crazy here. It's just a nice cozy item to have for solo laners. You could be probably playing into a lot of warriors. Obviously, some warriors now can deal some magical damage in their kit, so you can't be sure that you're just rushing in a Breastplate against a warrior. It's not necessarily going to be that way in Smite 2, but yeah, it's got physical protection, cooldown rate, mana, as you would always expect. Except now in Smite 2, it has a passive. When you lose 400 plus 30 times your level HP, your ability cooldowns are reduced by 1 second. So at level 20, this is going to be when you lose 1000 HP, so generally you're going to be building a full tank build if you're going for Breastplate value. You're going to get more value off of this passive. If you have like 3000 health, you can get effectively like 3 resets of this and get all of your ability cooldowns reduced by 3 seconds. Whereas if you've only got like 1800 HP in your build, you're not going to get anywhere near as much value. But yeah, nice to see Breastplate make a return. Such an iconic Smite 1 item that's been such a cozy like soul and rush for ability-based warriors for like so long. Blinking amulets. So we will actually read what they had to say about this because there was a lot of buzz about Blink in the Alpha 1. You know, it was in combat Blink. You could blink during animations and stuff. So let's have a read of what they think here. As we move through the alpha phases, we are bound to see some impactful reworks to existing items. Yes, I hope so. I say just like, try to change for change's sake. Just try and throw shit at a wall and see what sticks. Like, honestly, just sometimes you come up with genius ideas that way. Blinking Amulet was a huge point of discussion for the community, and we took note of the various likes and dislikes of the effect. Our next iteration is one we think will suit Smite players well, providing a high skill ceiling of outplay potential as well as the necessary counterplay. We wanted to make sure that the blink effect did not come with any extreme downsides, such as miserable stats or a massive cooldown. We wanted to preserve the cool new tricks players were doing. Oh, that's interesting. So maybe they're trying to keep the blinking mid-animation. I think that would be quite cool. So the active item will continue to be allowed to be used while firing, although it will come with a lot of additional QA work and bug fixing to support. Okay, so it seems like they are sticking with it, at least for the moment. You know, maybe by the time the game fully releases, they'll have realized it's completely toxic, or maybe it'll actually turn out to be really skill testing and really fun, and people will really be really glad that they kept it in. It's an alpha. I'm personally really down for them to keep this in the game for as long as they can to get feedback on it and see how, like, toxic it actually is for the game, because there is a chance this becomes ridiculously toxic and it's not good for the game. But at the moment, I really like the outplay potential of it, the skill ceiling of it. I think it's really cool. So it's good to see that they are supporting it at the moment, and it seems like they're going to be doing a lot of, like, QA work, bug fixing, and, like, effects and stuff to make sure that it looks right when you're blinking mid-animation on certain abilities. The real issue was the use of this item mid-combat. This made the effect hard to balance and far too easy to execute various plays with no warning or counterplay. Yeah, so at least now you've got some counterplay. You know, if someone's going to try and, like, blink on you mid-animation, if you've damaged them recently, they're not going to be able to do that. It's 3 seconds on the out-of-combat timer for this. The reworked blink has better stats and a much lower cooldown, allowing for more plays and more counterplay. So they have increased the cost a little bit, increased the cooldown rate from 7 to 15, decreased the range of it ever so slightly. The ability cannot be used in combat, and decreased cooldown from 180 to 90 seconds. So this was 90 seconds the original cooldown of, like, the tier 3 blink from the active item days of Smite 1. I think that might have been on 60 at one point, but this is still, like, historically a very low cooldown for blink, 90 seconds. People are going to be blinking all over the shop, dude. This ability can still be used while firing other abilities, as they said, as long as damage has not been dealt or taken in the last 3 seconds, and we'll be looking into new types of active items that include movement and do not have the damage dealt and take a restriction. So that's interesting. I don't really know what they mean by that at the moment, but maybe in future alpha tests we'll see some other active items that can, like, allow for movement that aren't just blink. Bloodbound Book is getting reworked, so this item now has an active effect instead of passive. Both this item and Bloodforged Blade have had their actives adjusted to have a longer cooldown by default, but that cooldown can be reduced by successfully killing enemy gods. So a little bit of theming coming in from Smite 1 Bloodforged there. So active, you gain a HP shield equal to 10% HP plus 80% int from items for 6 seconds. Killing a god reduces the current cooldown by 50%, and the cooldown is 140 seconds at the moment for both of these. That's kind of crazy, dude. Honestly, maybe I'm insane, maybe I'm unhinged, but I feel like resetting the cooldown of it would be cooler. It might be too broken. Maybe that would just be too broken. But I think it'd be really sick to know that you always have the shield ready if you killed someone. I don't know. Maybe that's insane. Reducing it by 50% is still absolutely massive. I assume it reduces, yeah, the current cooldown. It doesn't just take 70 seconds off of it. But yeah, that's cool. A little bit of a thematic, like, Bloodforge from Smite 1 coming in there to the Smite 2 versions. Polynomicon, they have increased the passive int damage from 30 to 50%. This makes sense. The reason this was nerfed, by the way, is that Polynomicon in Smite 2 no longer has an eternal cooldown like it does in Smite 1. It works like Hydra's Lament. Still, though, I'm kind of fine with Polynomicon having a little bit more scaling than Hydra's Lament does, because there's so many good physical uses of Hydra's Lament, because AA cancelling is far better on physical characters than it is on magical characters. Generally because melee gods are the ones that want to auto-attack cancel, and obviously mages are not melee, and guardians, they are melee, but they're not really, like, running in and auto-attack cancelling the same way an assassin or a warrior might do. So I think it's fine that Polynomicon is being bumped up to 50%, whereas Hydra's, I think, is still remaining at 30% at the moment. Kin's Blade is getting a nerf passive. Enemy gods hit by your basic attacks take 20 plus 10% max HP from items as bonus physical damage. So it's no longer just going to be straight up max HP. This, I believe, was 6% before, just 6% of your max HP, but now it's a little bit of base and then 10% of the max HP from items. So honestly, this is just a way smarter way of doing it compared to the massively convoluted way they had done it in Smite 1 for the longest time. Like, oh, this damage scales up if they have more than 2,000 health, and then it caps out at 2750 health at this amount. Like, it was just ridiculously convoluted. This is a much smarter way of doing it, because this just inherently makes it only useful against tanks. Like, if you're playing into Squishy that has, like, no items that are giving them health, Kins is fucking useless against them, and I like that, because this should be the tank shred item that you're itemizing to kill tanks with. So yeah, good to see that. I think that's a great change. Bagua Mirror, I don't even know what this item is. I think it's just a stat stick that decreased the base int and strength from the passive. Oh, it's the passive aura that gives extra strength and int to your allies, I think. So they've decreased that from 10 to 5. Helm of Darkness is getting reworked slightly, so it now is 2,900 gold, 90 int, and 25 physical pro, and the active effect, which turns you invisible, by the way, can no longer be used while already firing or channeling an ability. So they've kept it on Blink, but they removed it from Helm of Darkness, which I think makes sense. It'll probably cause too many, like, weird interactions of, like, you're channeling, like, a Thorol and you go invisible or something like that. I don't know. There's probably some specific reason why they did this. this. Helm of Radiance is getting a nerf. Absolutely justified. This item was completely and utterly busted. It felt like you just buy this on a mid laner and you never die to physicals anymore, basically. So they are decreasing the physical protections per stack from 10 to 5. I believe it's 3 stacks, so they're essentially taking 15 physical pro off of the item once it's stacked up. And they have general here. Virtually every other item in the game has had some small stat or cost adjustment based on the economy, tier 1 and tier 2 changes listed above. So when you get in game, expect that some items will have slightly different stat values or gold values or whatever that weren't really worth listing in the patch notes. And finally, a few general bug fixes to look at before we close out this patch notes video. So they have fixed issues with key binding settings. Controllers should now have fully rebindable button options. Tab and scroll wheel can now be rebound in settings. VGS console players can now ping the map in the world targeter. Fixed issues when using movement keys. This is a really annoying one. I'm glad they fixed that. Like every time you tried to VGS, it would stop you moving. Very annoying. Fixed an issue where using VGS would also trigger keybinds. Good to see as well. And fixed an issue with missing lines and mixed up lines. Yeah, there's plenty of missing lines, dude. Plenty of missing lines. Falling below the Conquest map or getting into a place where you are permanently stuck in a wall will now kill the god and send them back to the fountain. Yeah, of course, you don't ever want this happening, but it is an alpha. It's going to happen sometimes. So just having a failsafe in place where it just kills you rather than leaving you under there is a good idea. Fix an issue where holding the auto run button was causing the god to walk slowly. Very good one as well. It was very annoying that auto run was getting interrupted all the time. Fix an issue where upon reconnect, gods would sometimes have reduced movement speed. Oh my god, that's bad, dude. You've already DC'd from the game for like 2 minutes and you come back and you're moving like a snail. That's definitely a good one to fix. No, I've not experienced that myself. For Kukulkan, they fixed an issue where his dash form and slipstream had an incorrect cooldown, so it could be a buff or nerf, I have no idea. Fenrir fixed issues where his Brutalize will follow targets through teleports and recalls, and fixed issues where Brutalize would teleport behind jungle camps. Oddly, this is a really good one as well. Fenrir felt super weird with Brutalize. It wasn't just jungle camps though, it happened to gods as well, so I don't know if they've also fixed that. Neath, they fixed an issue where ultimate projectile will get stuck on map walls. I've not experienced that one, but definitely a good one to fix. Athena fixed an issue where Athena's ult damage would disappear if her target died, and fixed an issue where a preemptive strike ability was not dealing damage sometimes at closer range. Again, I haven't experienced any of these, but good to see. And finally, for items, they fixed an issue where Divine Ruin, Cosmic Horror, and Ruinous Ankh weren't giving the right type of mana, therefore not working with Kukulkan's passive. Okay, interesting. So maybe it counted as like base mana rather than item mana. And then fixed an issue where Cosmic Horror's passive cooldown reduction could stack infinitely when bought and sold repeatedly. Oh, that's funny, dude. Imagine like 50 minutes into the game, you got a ton of spare golds, you just keep buying this, and you end up with like 80% cooldown reduction. That's the funny one. But yeah, that's the Alpha 2 patch notes for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed my review of these. Some really exciting stuff coming, honestly. They've got like a bunch of item reworks. You know for sure I'm using Staff of Murden day 1, absolutely abusing that shit. It's going to be hilarious. 2 new gods, Hades and Sol, are going to be coming in this alpha test as well. Obviously going to be going live tomorrow as of the making of this video. It's going to be on the 30th. The 30th of May is when it's going to be going live. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I'll probably end up bringing a couple of gameplays to the main channel, but most of the gameplay for the Smite 2 Alpha 2 will be on my second channel, Into Games, which will be linked below if you're not subscribed there already. That's where I post most of my Smite gameplay, and the Smite 2 gameplay will be going on there as well. So definitely go subscribe over there if you want to catch all of my Smite 2 Alpha 2 shenanigans, abusing Staff of Murden, and I will catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.